Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. Here. Thank you. We are now going to move to start out with, they're not here. Let's do our guest first from, let's do our guest from Global Cleveland, if we could just do that, our guest first. Do we have any other guests in the room? Economic Development, any departments have any other guests? Any Economic Development? Okay, please join us at the table. All right, this is resolution number 1019-2023 by Councilmember Griffin and Mayor Bibb, an emergency resolution declaring this council's desire that Cleveland and Tema, Ghana, establish a sister city relationship and authorizing the mayor to enter into such an agreement and execute such documents that are necessary to implement the relationship. Please proceed. Who's going to be presenting for us? And please introduce your guests.
Yes. I'm on? Yep. So, hello. Thank you again for allowing us to be here today. My name is Zachary Nelson. I am the program director at Global Cleveland. I have heeded all of your wonderful counsel and am adamant that this city diversifies its sister city agreements and our relationships internationally. And I want to say that these next three agreements will be from the continent of Africa, starting with Tema, Ghana, which I find to be very important. Our next priorities, just to say it up front, are from the Global South, namely Spanish-speaking will be after the continent of Africa. That being said, I want to thank all of my friends here for not only putting in their expert commentary, helping me decide on a city in Ghana to choose, but why we should choose them, and why we should choose Tema, Ghana specifically. So I would like my friends here to introduce themselves in the way that they see fit and to offer their reasoning for providing counsel to me on this decision.
Sure. And please introduce yourselves.
Thank you, Council President. My name is Kwame Bachwe. I am a Ghanaian citizen, but resident here in Cleveland. I think since I moved to Cleveland, I've come to consider myself a Clevelander now. And so for me, this moment, it feels like a family union, one side of the family meeting the other, the cousins building relationships and all of those. And I think, as Zach said, it's been a long time coming. We've not seen enough sister cities in Africa. And I think that it's time that we sort of rectify that. So I'm happy to see both Council President and the Mayor, co-sponsor this to make this happen. I think the city of Tema itself is a very interesting city and shares a similar history to the city of Cleveland, given that they are all historically industrial cities. Tema, for matter of fact, is the first intentionally planned industrial city in Africa by, our foremost Pan-African and decolonial champion, Kwame Nkrumah, who is also the first president of Ghana. And the city has grown, similar in population profile to the city, similar industries. It's a port city as well. And so there's just a lot of similarity that is shared between the city of Cleveland and the city of Tema. And as far as we are having a lot of conversations about revitalizing the city of Cleveland, I feel that Tema is a good city to have this relationship, to leverage the lessons that they are learning and to share those experiences and be able to grow together. So I'm excited to see the city of Cleveland and the city of Tema become sister cities, and hope that there will be more programming and the opportunity for us to do a lot more together as, two sister cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gary.
Thank you, sir. Council President Griffin and council members. I'm William Gary, and I serve as the senior advisor to the president of Cuyahoga Community College for all of our workforce, community, and economic development activities. I came here back in 2014 with the charge of completely restructuring the college's workforce, community, and economic development activity. During that 9 years, we have completely restructured to make sure that we align all of our activities with the economic and business development needs of the region, particularly Cleveland. Earlier this year, some of us who are members of the board of Global Cleveland, had the opportunity to meet a delegation from Ghana. And during that discussion, we learned of the workforce training, the economic development challenges and issues that pretty much parallel and align those of Cleveland. And it became very apparent to me that we have an opportunity here to expand our reach and our capabilities to partner with TEMA, particularly given its rich resources, its manufacturing, healthcare, digital economy interests. And so I am very, very supportive of this initiative and want to thank all of you for your consideration of this request. I think it is beneficial for Cleveland. I'm very selfish about that. I don't want to see anyone else, any other city, claim this. We have an opportunity here. And so I'm very, very supportive of it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. And our good friend, Councilman Semperman, or Director, CEO, President, what we call him.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the council. Thank you for this to Zachary and to Mr. Bachway and Mr. Gary. Thank you. We have been very fortunate to have a growing number of people coming to the city of Cleveland who come from all over. As you know, the city of Cleveland has 24 now sister cities, a program that was begun under President Eisenhower when he was liberating the concentration camps and the slave labor camps, and he could not understand man's inhumanity to man. The idea is, Mr. Chairman, for people-to-people diplomacy, and the wonderful city of Timagana, which we hope to, all of us, to be able to go visit, is known in Ghana as the harbor city. It's a place of great economic development, but it is not the capital. It is a place where work is done, and in so many ways reminds me of the goodness of the city of Cleveland, and we're hopeful that this relationship will blossom, and we ask for your support for this important acknowledgement that this is an important city to our residents and to the people who are looking to internationalize Cleveland, Ohio. Thank you, Chairman.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Just one quick question, and then if any of my colleagues have any questions. How do you usually try to determine how the how the economies fit? Do you look at, the GDPs, the GMPs of each area to try to see if their GMPs and GDPs kind of align with each other? How do you try to identify these sister cities?
You want to answer that, and then I'll answer it from my perspective.
Mr. Chairman, we look for cities that are similar to Cleveland in terms of size and also industry. There are specific sister cities right now that we have that frankly are mismatched. And so we've learned from the 24 that we formed. Recently, as you know, Novi Sad, Serbia, Fier, Albania, and Beit Shan, Israel. And those are cities that seem like a right fit. There's educational institutions. There are communities there that are willing to share and exchange with the city of Cleveland. And there's a personal connection. Sister cities are only as good as the work that gets put into them. And knowing that we have this incredible local Ghanaian support. And I should say that Ms. Crystal Bryant, formerly the president of the NAACP and currently at Key Bank, also has close ties to Ghana. She just married somebody from Ghana. She travels there very often. Our hope is that we bring the youth that Mr. Gary and Mr. Bachaway bring to this relationship, and it becomes something where the two cities grow together. Mr. Gary?
There are a lot of industry sector similarities to Ghana and to the city of Cleveland, primarily manufacturing, automobiles. In fact, I didn't realize this, but back in 2018, Ghana began to manufacture electric vehicles. So that technology aligns very much with what we're trying to do here in Ohio. Similarly, Ghana is rich in minerals. Those minerals can be translated to what we're trying to do with respect to Intel coming into the region. Healthcare, primary alignment with healthcare. The digital economy, when we talk about AI, those kinds of activities. Higher education needs and training. Tri-C is probably one of the top workforce development community colleges in the nation. Ghana can benefit from our abilities to translate and transition our workforce training to their needs and vice versa. And I don't even need to mention hospitality and tourism and the exchange that benefits both our students here as well as our citizenry in both countries.
Awesome. All right. I believe I have a question from my colleague, Councilwoman Jasmine Santana. A couple of others.
Thank you, President. through the chair, and I'm not sure who could answer this question, but it is my understanding that Stockyard neighborhood, there's a lot of families from Ghana. And one of the needs that I hear often is workforce placement. I'm curious to know, in addition to the work that we're doing in Ghana and our sister city and aligning these efforts, what are we doing here on the ground to link these families to these opportunities?
You want me to use it? A priority of not just Tri-C's workforce training initiatives, but higher education here in Ohio, is to identify those groups that best benefit from a livable and sustainable wage. And those are the groups that we're targeting for those in-demand industry sectors that need workers. People from Ghana, people from the Latinx community, all of whom are priorities for our programs, are afforded occupational as well as scholarship support in the event that they can't afford workforce development programming. Keep in mind that our workforce development programs are self-sustaining, which means that Tri-C, for an example, as a major provider, has to charge for those courses, which is why we have our foundation support through scholarships to afford that training access to our programs. Couple that with targeted recruitment and placement with business and industry. And that's what we bring to the table, and that's what I'm hoping Cleveland can benefit from as we expand internationally, particularly here in Ghana.
Okay, thank you. So if I'm talking to these families, is there a recruiter from Tri-C that speaks the language that I am able to refer these families to?
I'm not sure if they speak the language specifically, but we have recruiting and dedicated resources that combine their relationships with community-based organizations to facilitate access from a communication standpoint. So we do have dedicated resources that outreach. We hold open houses, job placement facilities, recruitment activities, those kinds of things.
Got it, thank you. And as the chair of workforce, if you could keep me in the loop of these initiatives or any events that you have, that would be much appreciated. And my other question through the chair, and maybe Joe, you could answer this. 24 sister cities we've approved to city council. Who in the city is in charge of touching base with these different countries and ensuring that we're aligning and work is progressing?
It's a great question, Councilwoman. To the chair, a few years ago, under the previous administration, we kept getting asked that question, so we picked up the baton and began having annual Sister Cities meetings in our partnership with Tri-C and the Cleveland Public Library. In the first year that we held it, 10 of our cities came. And we hadn't done this before. And so over the course of COVID, we started doing things virtually. And there were some sister cities, candidly, that just never responded. The connection has gone quiet, and we continue to work it. We work with Chief Puente. We work with Mr. Austin Davis. They're both very engaged in this conversation. But we're really looking this year to focus on the local connection to these sister cities. And we're hopeful that with the Pan Am Games that are coming, looking at how do we layer on some of the things that the city of Cleveland has that maybe we haven't completely activated, seeing how that can be a big part of it. For the council's disclosure, of the 24 sister cities, 4 are in the continent of Africa, including Alexandria, Egypt. If one considers that to be an African nation, this will make 5. Only 2 are nations and cities where Spanish is spoken. Clearly, the reality of Cleveland today looks very different than when the sister cities were first formed in the 1950s, and our hope is to populate it with more places that reflect the true rich diversity of the people of Cleveland.
Got it. Thank you, Joe. And once again, this is not about this legislation, but while I have you at the table, I know I talked to Council President Griffin about the state of our immigrant population migrating here. Can you just touch a little bit on that so that maybe my colleagues could understand what's happening here in the city of Cleveland?
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, to the council member, Cleveland continues to be a welcoming place. We're seeing people coming, whether they're incredible leaders and thought drivers like Kwame Bachwe, who is doing so much work in his day job at Cleveland Neighborhood Progress and helping us with policy. Students who are currently at Cleveland State, Tri-C, Case Western, who are studying a variety of different disciplines, to people that are coming through one of our 3 resettlement agencies who are coming here as refugees. people that are coming here because they don't have a home in which to feel safe. And Councilwoman, with your leadership, especially throughout your time as a council member, but specifically this summer, for our sisters and brothers who are coming from the border, where Spanish is spoken. And you and I know families are coming in 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, and between great organizations like Catholic Charities, USCRI, Refugee Response, now May Dugan, and the work that Global Cleveland can do, we've probably seen close to 15 or so families coming through who are from Ecuador or Guatemala or Costa Rica or El Salvador. And our hope is that we can continue to be the place, we know we're the place, Councilwoman, through the chairman, where people feel comfortable coming to. We want to be the place where they settle and they bring more people with them. Because our one goal is, in the census, when council reviews this in 2031, that we will have more people who were born outside the U.S. living in Northeast Ohio than we had in the previous 10 years. And it's through incredible leadership by people like Kwame Bachwe and William Gary and Crystal Bryant that we begin to do that. But it really is one community, one relationship at a time, and making sure that we're tending to that. So it's an ever-changing dynamic. Over the weekend, we received another family from Ukraine who came here because they don't have a home anymore. We know that we're getting more people from Afghanistan, and we just continue to want people to know that this is a very welcoming place and a place that, because of the leadership in this building, Cleveland is open for business. It's open to people from all over the world.
Thank you, Joe. And I would just add that families from Ukraine have resources when they get here, right? There's a stipend for rental assistance and so forth, but the immigrants that we're getting from Latin America, they don't have anything. And so my office continues to see influx of families because I speak the language and I have nowhere to send these families to. So Joe and I are working on some efforts around housing and workforce and so forth, but we can't turn a blind eye to this situation. They're coming, they're here, and so I think we need to come up with a very proactive plan rather than being reactive. Because they're coming and they're here and they could totally contribute a lot to our city of Cleveland. So I yield.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your hard work on that, Council Lady. I know that's very important. Councilman Kerry McCormick, Councilman Mike Valencia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kwame, good to see you, and to the rest of the team at Global Cleveland, Mr. Gary as well. Really excited to see this move forward, and I really appreciate Global Cleveland's perspective on not just this being in name, but working together to really deepen the relationship with Ghana and other countries that we align with. So this is very exciting, so congratulations. And Mr. Chair, I'll just say, what I really appreciate that I'm seeing more and more out of public, private, civic Cleveland, whether it's the Cultural Gardens, Global Cleveland. While I am, my Irish ancestors came, here in hard times, and there's a lot of recognition of that in Cleveland. It's good to see so many other cultures that the city maybe has not recognized as detailed and intimately, and we're now doing that. And going through the Cultural Gardens, Mr. Chairman, and seeing countries from other parts of the world outside of Europe being more prominently recognized is really, really important. So it's really good to see this. Mr. Chairman, without your objection, I'd like to be added to 1019. Added to this piece as a co-sponsor, but just really excited to see this work and excited to work together to see how we can deepen this relationship. And I'll just reflect to, I really appreciate President Simperman's comments. As a lifelong born and raised City of Cleveland resident, we're not producing enough humans to keep up with population. So we've got to welcome folks in from all around the world, the country and the world, to make their lives here, just as my Irish immigrant ancestors did years ago, coming to Cleveland, first moving to Kelly Avenue on the east side of the city. And so it's really exciting to see this, and I view this, Mr. President, as, again, another great way to hopefully create a real meaningful road to Ghana, and how do we get more folks back and forth from Ghana to Cleveland. And we've got some great ambassadors here to help us do that, but it's really, really exciting to see this work. And, these types of declarations, Mr. Chairman, are meaningful. They send a signal. They show that the city of Cleveland is welcoming to all, and that we want to grow that international community right here in the city. So, again, Mr. Chairman, without your objection, I'd like to be added to 1019. Thank you all so much.
Please do so. Could
I
we
do too.
please add? And can we add Kerry McCormick and also Jasmine Santana And any other councilperson that would like to would let us know. Councilman Michael Polinsky.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the presenters. I, too, would like to have my name added. One of the things I wanted to just mention, the dovetail off of what Jasmine Santana said at the table. I've been here for maybe the overwhelming majority of those relationships that were established between Cleveland and wherever. And one of the things that has disappointed me the most is that we established the sister cities, and then not too much happens afterwards. And so from a standpoint of especially trade and sharing of information, it seems like not too much ever happens. Or if there is, we're not hearing about it on this side of the table. So I'd like to hear maybe some comments on what we can collectively do to up that, to you know, especially those that are democratically run countries, where we can engage more, where we can talk more, where we can learn more about what they need. Do they have things that we can utilize here, and vice versa? Especially, I'm talking about trade and development, because I don't think that happens enough. I mean, I was part of the group that with Joe that went to Slovenia in 2012, I think it was, and I thought there was going to be some, you know, some real partnerships coming out, especially from a standpoint of manufacturing and industrial collaboration, and it just didn't happen. It did not happen, and I've been disappointed about that ever since. In fact, I was just talking to the Consul General, who indicated the same thing to me. Not the honorary, the Consul General, the only diplomat in Cleveland, actual diplomat in Cleveland from the Republic of Slovenia, is here, and indicated that how do we create better linkages? How do we create trade opportunities? And so whoever wants to comment briefly on that, I'd be open to listen. We can create all the sister cities we want, but if nothing ever materializes out of it, just a name.
Right. Mr. Chairman, to the councilman, it's a very excellent point. We saw a few things, which is, you know, there's a lot of things that Cleveland has to learn, but there's a lot of things that Cleveland can share. In the first year that we did this 5 years ago, our sister city in Ethiopia, Bahir Dar, amazing community of Ethiopians here in Northeast Ohio, wonderful people in the St. Clair Superior neighborhood in the city, the folks at Empress Tetu and Senate Robeson and Dr. Robeson. And the one thing that the Ethiopian community wanted to study that Cleveland had that they did not was our emergency response services.
Okay.
So for about a week, they spent time with then Commissioner Carlton and other folks in our community about how we organize ambulances. And it was really interesting because they took some of those ideas back with them. We saw with the city of Ljubljana, their library wanted to connect with our library because, as you know, the Cleveland Public Library is second to none and has one of the most outstanding research collections. And now with the NUK, I don't want to butcher Slovenian, but it's the library of the University of Ljubljana, they have a signed partnership with the Cleveland Public Library where they exchange materials and they talk about doing different programming together. With Beit Shan, Israel, that one is really interesting because that was a sister city in action before we even named it. That was where Dr. Art Napperstack from Case Western and others were going for 25 years, and the Goldbergs. And it's funny because if you close your eyes and you go to Beit Shan, Israel, the way that they talk about themselves is the exact same way that Clevelanders talk about themselves, right? About, you know, kind of like the attitude of get up and go and we've got the grit. And what we're trying to do is exactly what you said, Councilman, is figure out where do we create those job connections, right? And with trade. And one of the organizations that we met with this morning, Governor DeWine has really added to his international team is they have a sub-national diplomacy committee where they have people working in the Department of Development for Governor DeWine who are literally working with the 40 different arrangements of countries around the world, Japan, Indonesia, Slovenia, places like Brazil, of how they can expand some of the opportunities. And what we said to the governor's team this morning was, there's a city that's starts with a C that's north of the capital, and it's called Cleveland. And we'd really like it if you would start to center some of that economic development here, because candidly, we have stuff that neither Columbus or Cincinnati do in terms of our ethnic and cultural heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Joe, and to, again, all the presenters. Just a brief question and then an answer. Is there an umbrella group over all the sister cities?
The city of Cleveland is, Councilman, it's ours. It's Mr. Chairman, to the Councilman, it's the city of Cleveland's.
Yeah.
And, different groups engage differently. The Hungarian community is very engaged with Miskolc, Hungary. Ljubljana, the same way. Some of our other committees, or our communities where it's a little bit trickier, is our Ghanaian community, Conakry, Guinea. It's been a little bit too quiet. We're trying to reinvigorate the Alexandria, Egypt committee. And what we learn about that, Mr. Chairman, are people like Judge Sherry Midday actually have family ties there.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's always trying to figure out how to make it work for that community, because we serve the city and we serve the organizations. We're not here to tell them what to do, but we think there's a lot more that we could be sharing and exchanging.
But, Mr. Chairman, again, Global Cleveland isn't, I wonder, like, who is the umbrella group who can, forward information to us or can tell us about what's going on in
We could, Mr. Chairman, to the Councilman, we could share, we'd be more than
Okay.
happy to share all of our data with you.
Okay.
We recently shared it with Mayor Bibb's team, because they're looking to do a very intense invite for the Pan Am Games.
Yeah, because at one time, as you know, Mr. Chairman, we used to have an ethnic coordinator at
Yes.
City Hall under Mike White.
Yes.
Under George Voinovich.
Yes.
I don't know, I think it might have,
Richard Kanashevitz,
Yeah, I think-
Dr. August Pust.
yeah, it might have
Yes.
got ditched under the Campbell administration. I think it might have got ditched then. But we haven't had anything
No.
like that at City Hall since then.
No.
And I think the administration, I think that's something the administration needs to consider that would help coordinate stuff, help discussions, help being more engaged in what we have been in the past. It's all about job creation and building relationships. That's what it's all about. So
It
I'll
is.
stop there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, and if you wanted at some point, at the council president's pleasure and the council, we'd love to come and present to you. It's funny, when the mayor asked for the contacts, I think, Zachary, we gave 250 names?
Yes.
For about 24 sister cities. And the question was, why don't you just give us the person in the mayor's office? And we said, right, oftentimes it's a collective response to the sister city relationship. And so we'd be more than happy to share that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say, and if anything else, COVID-19 revealed that we need to do more onshoring and need to have more of these partnerships around manufacturing, especially smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0. But also, we can't forget culture and arts as well, because a lot of people don't know this. I know this because of my former friend and mentor and my studies a long time of Paul Hill, where we used to learn a lot about the Akan culture, and most of the African-American diaspora in Cleveland comes from the West Coast, the Yoruba culture, which is right there in Ghana and some of those other places. So I think it's very important and culturally relevant that we also make sure that we reconnect with those ties as well. So Kwame, always good to see you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Hairston.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Fully support. Please add me on as well. It's funny that this is here because there's a group of CMSD individuals, Dr. Robin Simmons, who is assistant principal in the school district, who is on the trip now to Ghana with a cohort of individuals. I've got a chance to see some of the video footage, of them on the trip. And in fact, some CMSD students, a larger group were supposed to go, but unfortunately, due to the cost of them going, they were not able to go. And they're trying to hit the reset button for this upcoming spring to go. And they will be, trying to fundraise to help get a cohort of students to go on that trip. They are very intentional about exposure, not exposure just in Northeast Ohio, but exposure outside of the United States, which is very important, especially at a place like Ghana. All of the things that you have narrated here today is the reasons why many of us, and especially our young people, should have an opportunity to visit and to explore and to be able to interact with places like Ghana. So I'm sure I'm gonna connect Dr. Simmons to this group here that can potentially be supportive of her efforts to try to get more young people to different places outside of the U.S., and particularly Ghana. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say
Sure,
Yes.
to the councilman, it is about $220,000 as of last year annually for us to outfit every graduating senior of CMSD with a passport.
Okay.
And it is a dream of mine that I hope to attain in this lifetime, that we would give our young people a chance, even if it's just to go to Toronto, right, which you need a passport for
Right.
now, or Mexico City, or the Dominican Republic. But I think we all know if you travel, it changes you.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't take you away from your city. It makes you better able to be in that city of your birth.
That's right.
And that is something that we are 100% with you, Councilman, to the chairman.
Absolutely.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I know I had Councilman Polinsky. Did anybody else want to be added to this ordinance 1019-23? I had McCormick, Santana, Polinsky, Hairston, Bishop. If all of those can be added to this as well, okay? Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you guys with the when the final one is done, and we'll be all here together. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Workforce. I know that Ms. Rose has a critical appointment. Can she come to the table? Which one is workforce for Ms. Rose? I got it. 10:30. Yeah, that's it. Okay, ordinance number 1030-2023 as amended by Mayor Bibb. And please add me to this as well if you could. An emergency ordinance to authorize the mayor to enter into a local governance agreement with the county and nonprofit organization to carry out workforce development activities for the Cleveland-Cuyahoga County Workforce Development Area, as amended. I'll read the amendment. In the third whereas clause, there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In the third whereas clause, line 1, strike Workforce Investment and Innovation Act and insert Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And in line 7, strike Workforce WOIA and insert WIONA. No, WIOA. And number 2, in the seventh whereas clause, line 2, strike Cuyahoga and insert the county. This was dated 10/9/23 by Vishnu Gangleni, Assistant Director of Law. And we have Ms. Rose at the table. This was heard in Workforce Committee. Ms. Rose.
Thank you, Council President, and thanks so much for having me here today. As the Council President mentioned, we discussed this thoroughly last week at the Workforce Committee. Thank you, Councilwoman Santana, for your guidance and partnership on this and many other things that we're doing in workforce. And really, this is an ordinance that is a little bit wonky. It's structural. It doesn't feel like much of a difference to our residents, but it is the thing that I believe will help us do all of that work better, to serve more people, to be more efficient, and to be a better partner in the workforce system. So I do have a brief presentation. I'm happy to go through it real quick, but really I just want to take your questions and would remind you that we had a really great conversation at Workforce last week where I felt improved the process and the legislation itself. So just quickly, again, I'm the executive director of Ohio Means Jobs, Cleveland-Cuyahoga County, which is the Workforce Development Board or public workforce system for our city and county. I am a city employee. I was appointed by the mayor to run this organization, which is 18 staff, both city and county teammates, operating, though, under one umbrella. And really, this is a combination of something that happened back in 2004 through 2006, which is the combination of the city workforce department and the county workforce department, which at the time was an improvement over having two different divisions, but still is not really serving us well. This sort of mishmash of staff and then sort of a lot of inflexibility in the way we operate. So there's a lot of reasons we're pursuing this, but I'll back up and just say, a few things. I was tasked with exploring this when I started 15 months ago. I've thought about it and looked into it every day of those 15 months and really believe that this will allow our organization to serve more people, our residents, and connect them to jobs. Once again, the mission of my organization is connecting workers to jobs and jobs to workers. We're best when we can do that with more people and more businesses and be a really truly effective matching organization. This was also laid out in the 2019 strategic plan of our organization. And so it's another reason that the board has supported this. So the Workforce Development Board, currently made up of 25 members, overwhelmingly supported this transition at our May meeting. And then the next step was to bring it before both City Council and County Council for your approval so that the mayor and the county executive can also approve. So that process is going pretty smoothly, but this point and this legislation before City Council is a really important milestone. So I really want to make sure people are comfortable and understand the rationale for this. Just quickly, the rationale is around impacts. With diversified funding streams and the ability to accept non-governmental funds, we will be able to serve more people who walk into our center. So if a resident from Ward 14 comes into our center and they are not WIOA eligible, but we may have another funding source to serve them. We can also focus on new sectors that we're not currently managing from the system level for. And again, provide more holistic set of services for more people. The other is around something I already mentioned, which is around operations, being able to hire, promote, making consistent our job descriptions, which they are not currently, and to enter into contracts and innovative agreements will allow us to also better serve people. And then really this is also about alignment. For a long time, I believe Ohio Means Jobs had too much of a sideline role in setting a vision for the workforce system. And what I have found since I started is there is a hunger for an organization to set that and be able to execute on that vision, which we will with this additional flexibility. We do have a really thorough implementation plan, which I won't get into here, but I'll highlight a couple of things. One, it's important that I say everywhere I go that our staff will not be laid off or fired throughout this transition. I mentioned 18 employees, 6 city, 12 county, all will either come to the nonprofit or find another role at the city or county that is a fit for them. And we're taking great care around that. They'll also be able to tap into and stay into their PERS. So people, a lot of our city employees have actually been serving for decades, and we wanted to make sure they're able to maintain that retirement system. We'll have a very thorough process for public and stakeholder input in our new governance, our new code and bylaws. But I'll remind you again, and this was a big topic at Workforce, that the composition of the Workforce Board remains the same. It is required with the federal funds that we receive. And then we'll also need to undertake a number of operational changes, like a new IT system and procuring HR and legal help. All of our current contracted providers, their contracts will transition into the new era, which again, we hope to operationalize as a nonprofit on July 1st, 2024, the start of the next program year. A couple more things, and then I'll take your questions. The majority of boards are now nonprofit. Columbus, our best example for a peer city in the state, became a nonprofit 20 years ago and have advised us on the virtue of this idea and how to technically make it happen. When I worked at the Labor Department, which I worked at before I came here, I asked the Employment and Training Administration, which administers workforce services and funding, how they felt about local boards becoming nonprofits, kind of assuming they might say no, that it was too far afield. And actually, they said that they had seen this trend happening of boards deciding to transition their governance to a nonprofit, and they supported it because workforce, like so many of our services, are really best designed close to the ground and close to the residents we're serving and not at the federal level. And so with that flexibility, boards are able to innovate locally while also still receiving that federal support. There are a number of ways that council will still maintain a role in accountability and oversight and connection to OMJ, and happy to talk about what those things are. But important part of that is around transparency. We will still be accountable to Ohio's sunshine laws. And I want to emphasize again that the plan that led us here and the plan that will take us further has had robust stakeholder input, including facilitated focus groups with job seekers and businesses in the community. So I will stop there, again, asking for your support of this legislation, which would allow us to operate as a nonprofit starting July 1st, 2024.
So a couple of things. Thank you so much, Mrs. Rose. Just to level set, because I was here when Allison Motts was actually the director, and I remember that transition very well. And it was a struggle to get to that transition. And it was supposed to, it's kind of clunky, a COG, a Council of Governments. But the one thing about government and keeping it under city is that we maintain oversight and we maintain guidance and, as you mentioned, transparency. So there's sometimes a level of help and shelter to have these kind of initiatives under government, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that these kind of things that receive government dollars actually can effectively help the people that we serve. So I say all of that to say that, we've had extensive conversation. We're looking at passing this. However, help us understand how the taxpayers won't get short shrift if this leaves a government oversight process. Because once it goes into the nonprofit sector, even though we do not put money into it now, and even though we do not have direct oversight because it's a joint county and city government kind of structure, workforce is still important in the city of Cleveland, and we have to have some kind of connectivity that is not just by somebody's because they're just being kind. We need some kind of connectivity so that we can make sure that the taxpayers have somebody advocating for them. So how is that? I know the mayor gets appointments. Council doesn't get appointments to this board. So help me understand how we still maintain our connection to workforce that's just not at the whim of what you guys want to do.
Sure. Thank you, Council President. It's a great question. And your reference of Allison, this was, like I said, acknowledged at the time in 2006 of the combination as an improvement over two boards, but it's still not serving residents well. Every previous executive director since 2006 and every former board chair of our organization has endorsed this process to transition because they see what I've seen in 15 months, which is that we can be so much more nimble and responsive if we have this flexibility. So I think there are a few ways that we can stay connected. And I would argue that right now, I'm not sure that our connectivity has been based on the fact that I am technically a city employee. It's been based on me coming here and trying to build relationships with leaders like Councilwoman Santana to make sure that we're all aligned on what workforce programs we need. So I think there are a few things. One is accountability. So I welcome more interest in our performance and budget. Those are, again, public documents that we report quarterly at our board meetings. There's also the visibility, so the awareness of what we're doing and providing visibility to you on new strategies and programs. But then there's also the connectivity, and I think this is the probably most promising area for increased collaboration, which is around the co-creation of programming that we see, that you identify and we can implement. And resources for residents. So I would love nothing more than for you all to be holding events with us, co-sponsored, planned by us in your wards, because you have access to the residents who I want to make sure know about our services. And so more and more, I would like it to be true that I'm asking for your help reaching residents through your newsletters, which I know some of you have done before. So really on the resident level, but also on the systemic level to make sure we're also standing up programs that are meeting what you're seeing on the ground. So I think there are lots of ways to do that. I appreciate that a couple members of the council staff have signed on to help us with our strategic functions committee work on the new code and bylaws. I also committed through the legislation last week to provide a quarterly update to the Councilwomen's Committee, Workforce Committee, about our activities so that can be a real touch point for us to stay aligned.
Thank you for that explanation. Before I go to my next question, who would have, if this was a nonprofit, right now, this may be a legal question, but if we wanted a council member to have a seat on that board, how would that be approached? Would we have to do it through this legislation before we let it out the door? Or would you guys become a nonprofit and then would have to have your board of directors vote on it? Neither way would probably not be clean because you'll be going through a transition either way. But I still wanted to plant that seed because I think council is too important to just not be married with the Workforce Investment Board.
Yes. So to the council president, I agree that, I'm of the belief that this is a topic best addressed through our new code process. So through the bylaws and code that will govern this organization about how the city and the county appoint board members. So I mentioned earlier that the composition of the board is not changeable, but how people get appointed to the board can be addressed through that process. So in my mind, and I don't think it's cleanest to do it by amending this legislation, and as we talked about at the Workforce Committee, this is something I'm very open to working with you on, is figuring out how council can be represented either through a seat on the board or through approval of the mayor's appointments to the board.
So, Joe, I think you're working the staff for that on us today. Are you staffing this? If we could, we might need to pull that ordinance that gives the mayor governance oversight and be able to put board members on there. And then we need to research if we could, if council could have a reinvented role on this board.
Yeah.
So let's have that conversation if we could, okay? I'm going to defer to the committee chair, which is Jasmine Santana, and then Mike Polinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Attorney Melnick responded with that question because that question came up on our Workforce Committee, and she sent a very detailed message, and I think that charter number is 6301. Joe, just for you to have it, and then I'll forward this to the president as well. But that was one of the concerns that came up, having a council member be part of the board, and then the oversight. Do we lose our oversight, which is why we have that amendment? But we had a very robust conversation, and I work very closely with Director Rose, and I love that she always sends out numbers in those reports when we request it. But to your point, President Griffin, we are worried about the oversight or just ensuring that more of our residents are being serviced through Ohio Means Jobs. So, but it was approved and we came to a consensus. So thank you for your question. Once again, it's something
No
that
problem.
was concerned from all of my
And
members.
if we could, with our legal department, with Ms. Melnick and also our research team, we just want to make sure we see what our options are with that. So we'll look to move this because I know it's been time sensitive and everybody's been ready to work on it. But at the same time, I just want to make sure that council has a seat at the table to advocate for workforce and diversity issues. As a matter of fact, with the $10 million that you put in place, we already, that we've allocated to you to work with other groups, we already allocated, we already put a council member in place to help with that process. So we want to stay
Actually.
close, we want to stay close
Yeah.
with the workforce
Yeah.
process.
And
okay?
President, we do have a date for Director Rose to come back and give us numbers on
Good.
that building environment.
Awesome, thank you. Councilman Michael Polinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to Ms. Rose and to our colleague, chairman of the committee, Jasmine Santana. I'm still trying to get understand this.
Yeah.
So there was an amendment considered to put a member or members of city council on the board?
Through the council president, there was a lot of discussion at the Workforce Committee about how appointments get made to the board.
Yes.
However, the composition of the board is set by the federal statute that governs our work, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and that will continue to remain true even if we are a nonprofit. That legislation says that local boards must be business-driven and that 51% of appointments to the board are employers, so that we are managing to what employers need and creating pipelines for their work. And so there's some tension there in terms of required partners, business, labor, higher educational institutions, and also wanting workforce thought leaders and local elected officials on the board. I think there's a way to do that, but this was the discussion. I don't know technically if there was an amendment considered, but I don't believe that it was something we kind of, I think, parked to make sure we address concurrent to this legislation.
Director of Law, just to intervene, stated that this was not the appropriate legislation for us to do that amendment on.
Okay. So the way this is structured then, it would be the county executive and the mayor will appoint the members of the quote-unquote board.
Through the council president, yes, that's how it works now, and that's how it
Yes.
would work in the future. The WIOA legislation designates chief local elected officials for an
Okay.
area, and for us, that's the mayor and the county
Okay.
executive.
But without the concurrence of council.
The way it's written, that's the way it's written from the federal.
Okay. Okay. So, so what you're telling us at the table, that council would have no input to who sits on the board, correct?
Through the council president, that's my understanding of how this has been working for
Okay.
all previous appointments
That's
to
the
the
way it
board
is
as well.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to clarify this, that's the way it is now.
Yes.
What we
I
want
understand
to
that.
understand is legally, which way and which portal do we have to change that to make sure that either council, either one, has a seat on the board, or two, council approves the board appointments as we do with other boards.
Yes.
But because this is a COG, a council of governments, from what I understand, from what I've seen, that's the reason why we can't. It's like we would have to agree with the county
Yes.
in order to do that.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand,
Yeah.
because, Mr. Chairman, and I guess I'll pose this to Ms. Rose, you know, when we talk about, you know, workforce development, job creation, opportunities, I guess my observation, I've become very jaded about this whole process, and very skeptical about it. Because what I continue to see is lack of opportunities and programming for our young people, especially those under 20 years of age, specifically within the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. I look at other counties, I look at other regions, what they're doing. I have friends, just was talking to a friend down in Medina County, how the programs they have there for vocational technical training programs for kids in the county and in the Brunswick School District. And I'm looking at these other cities and, again, regions, and then I look at the city of Cleveland, and I look at how vocational and technical programs have been stripped from our schools, especially on the east side of the city. And then, so when we talk about workforce development, I'm just jaded because I don't see it happening. Last week, I was asked, my dear friend Ted Ginn over at Ginn Academy invited me there to hear from Rich Paul, who came over. And I didn't know who Rich Paul was, okay?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Not an Adele fan.
So I went over and I was sitting in the front row, you know, I could walk over and touch him. And he came in and not dressed with jewelry and rings and fancy stuff. He came in like just someone walking off the street. But he talked to the kids that were gathered, and everyone knows the track record of Ted Ginn and Ginn Academy. But he was talking to the kids about, the students, excuse me, about not everyone's going to play football. Not everyone's going to play basketball. And he went down the numbers of how many people make it to the NBA and make it to, but you have to have a career path. You got to be able to do something. You got to be able to have a fallback position if you can't do what you think you can do. And and I sat there and I listened intently to him because he talked probably in such a common sense way that I had not heard in a long time. And you could tell the kids were listening. The kids were listening to him. And so, but at the end of the day, I look at the kids at Ginn Academy, and I say the same thing. I'm there all the time. He's put out some wonderful athletes, but the majority of those kids are not going to Ohio State or Michigan or da-da-da. They need a career path, but they're not getting it. So when we talk about workforce development and job creation, I look at some of my friends that are in the trades, what they make. They make more than the mayor does.
Yeah.
They make more than the mayor does. They're in the trades. How do we make the connection between this program or all the other programs that are out there and to our school systems and providing opportunities for our kids. Because if not, all they are, it's another statistic. That they have no,
Right.
they're either, it's poverty, crime, whatever the case may be. But I know if these kids can be hooked, if their interests can be hooked, we can put them on a path for success. It's just like the thing that bugs me, like the swimming pool at Collinwood's closed because black kids can't swim or won't swim. That's what they tell me. But it sits there. It's an indictment of a system that has failed our kids. When these kids could be possibly getting scholarships to go to college, swimming programs, swimming athlete. One of them might, who knows, we might have an Olympic champion. But the pool sits empty because black kids don't swim or can't swim. I think it's outrageous. But that's what's happened to our school system. So what I'd like to hear from you briefly, where's the linkage between this and our school system?
And I want to know who said black kids don't swim. I am the high dive champ and can still swim like a fish right now, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk
Through
to
the
the
council
leadership.
president. I didn't know that about you.
Right.
Through the councilman, through the council president. Thank you so much for your comments and really you're touching on what is the most common conversation and most urgent need in people in my role here and throughout the state and throughout the country. I spend a lot of time meeting with my peers in organizations, again, throughout the state and throughout the country. And this question about how we can work with schools, particularly for grades 6 through 12, to create real, meaningful career pathways. Because, a lot of them aren't going to play basketball or football, and a lot of them aren't going to go to college, and that's also great and fine. And, I'm excited about what I've perceived as a cultural shift around the skilled trades and through and towards associate's degrees and career pathways for people who are not college bound. And, locally, I think we've done a lot of good work setting that up. It needs to be replicated and expanded so that more CMSD grads and also, graduates throughout the county are captured when they leave high school and don't go to college. And so, real meaningful work experiences before graduation and also a sense of, empowerment about these career paths. So I couldn't agree more with you. I do, though, want to say that I'd love to talk to you more about some of the progress that we're seeing, some of the early progress that I see systemically with our OMJ funding, but also with other partners throughout the community. There are many front doors into the workforce system for young people and for adults. And that makes it hard to measure, hard to lift up, hard to amplify. But I do believe there's a lot of good work happening. I love for you to be less jaded about it and to share some of those successes. But I also acknowledge that we have a long way to go.
Well, again, the proofs will be in the pudding. We have funded a lot of initiatives, a lot of programs, but for some reason, the powers that be, because we don't, so I want to make that clear to the viewing public, the council president, nor does any member of this body have any input into the Cleveland Public School System. We are prohibited. The mayor is in charge of who sits on the Board of Education, and then ultimately who becomes the CEO. We don't. But at the end of the day, unless we start providing opportunities for these kids and these young people, there is no hope. It's just more poverty, more despair, more lack of opportunity, and I'm disgusted, fed up by it, and we got to figure out how we're going to do something different here because nothing ever changes. That's the problem. Nothing ever changes, but we got to be agents of change. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you. When reading this, when you mentioned through the chair workforce development, are you piggybacking on through the chair with Councilmember Mike Polensek is saying, what kind of, you said workforce investment with the county, are you looking to get them job ready or career ready and what are you going to do? Have a career coach with them, or
Sure.
Or because sometimes you got to have people with them to help them along, and so you get them job readiness and job readiness skills through the chair to do what?
Through the chair to the councilman, thank you for your question. I would love to talk just a little bit about how OMJ works. So I always like to say that we are not job creators, we are job fillers. Our job is to connect workers to jobs and jobs to workers. So we work with job seekers who come into our center at 1910 Carnegie and employers who have identified with us their most pressing openings. We tend to see concentrated groups of job openings and needs in our legacy sectors here in Cleveland, like manufacturing, healthcare, and tech. So we have a lot of focus around systemic strategies in certain sectors. We're also doing more in construction, thanks to an investment by the city, including council. And we're trying to do more work in things like hospitality and mental health, where the shortage of workers is causing a real impact for residents. But generally, your experience, a resident's experience walking into our job center or meeting with one of our career coaches throughout the community, we're often co-located in community centers and libraries, could be a number of job seeker services. So career coaching and ongoing case management, resume help, prepping for interviews, referral to other resources like transportation or clothing for interviews, and things like that. And really sticking with someone to develop their interests, to help them prepare for open jobs. And oftentimes this also includes a referral to training, which is always a good outcome in my mind, because we can really change someone's life by funding their training, which is something we do with that WIOA funding that we have, sending them to Tri-C or to Cleveland Builds to learn a trade. And that puts them on a completely different career pathway. So those are the kinds of services that we offer at our center.
You know what? To get more job placement, do you have a job developer? Also, you have job developers, and they do what?
Yes, so our staff, this is work that happens through contracted staff. They also are simultaneously working with employers to talk to them about job design and how to find the workers that they need to make their business functional, also, and match them to workers that have also come to see us.
And so, you have barriers to employment, especially with racial profiling. We have a lot of African Americans and a lot of African American males who, on their driving record, they end up, having a barrier to employment. So, with some people like Choice Employment, or with who's this Legal Aid Society, if you had them to help work with you to knock down some of the barriers to employment, as well as help people out with bus tickets and uniforms that they might need for work.
Yes, through the council president, yes, we do work with Towards Employment. We refer to legal aid. There's all sorts of barriers someone could identify. Childcare, transportation to work, something on their criminal record. Those are all things that we can help an individual navigate as part of the preparation for work. It's alongside updating your resume and making sure you have something to wear, is making sure you have a way to get to these interviews, and the specialized services that Towards Employment and Legal Aid have for expungement clinics and other driver's license reinstatement is a big one.
Yeah, that's very, very, very important. You know what? I'm going to say something that my colleagues may look at me like I'm crazy saying this. There's a good job. Let's say if you worked for McDonald's. Oh, Conwell, I don't want to flip fries or flip burgers. But in a workforce, if you train them right, it's not just moving. You have to cultivate workers. And it's not just cultivating them to be the shift supervisor or the assistant manager or the manager. There's other job spots at McDonald's that you could talk with people about. You have finance people can go back to college, become a finance person or accountant, or get your real estate license and become a real estate person for McDonald's. It's not just flipping the fries. They have other job spots there. You can also become a purchasing and procurement person for McDonald's, buying the widgets for that. But they don't open it up to tell people there's other job spots, real estate, purchasing and procurement. So you have this hamburger that you're spending so much money, but in that pie, there's dollars you're spending dollars for purchasing and procurement, preventive maintenance, for real estate, person to be there for marketing, doing LSM, local store marketing for McDonald's to get the marketing out. But they only see flipping fries or doing fries and burgers because in jobs, there's other kind of systems that's in there that you could aspire to be. But in training, you teach them one thing, and you might say they don't want to work for Burger King or McDonald's, and they're thinking about their future because, let me say this, even with one of the biggest problems, Council President, Council Lady Santana, is that children need to see success every day. And if you don't show them the success, they don't want to do that. But if you show them the success, then we can move forward and they can see something at the end of the road, and that's very, very important. One more thing I want to say, I need you to do for me with your job. We push this. It's other things you have to look at when you do job placement, job retention.
Yep.
And you never gave us your numbers. For example, you might place 80 people, and then through attrition or whatever the case may be, only 7 people end up working out of the 80.
Yeah.
But we sign this contract. Job retention. Jobs, meaningful jobs with meaningful benefits. You got people who, how many workers have received benefits, 80% or whatever the case may be. But we never bring any numbers to show us job retention, job placement, as well as job benefits. You never bring that to us.
Sure.
Real quick, right before you came in, Councilman, one of the things that Council Lady Santana amended and that she is bringing Ms. Rose back just to do exactly what you just said. So just want to make
Cool
sure.
beans, man.
So,
You know
I
what,
you
here's
didn't
my
get
last piece, and I'll yield. With the arts, we need to figure out some kind of way that you have a lot of unemployed artists, musicians, and we need to figure out a way how to get them working also. And if you had just a job developer for that at Cleveland Playhouse, at the Art Museum, at the Karamu House, what you call Karamu House,
Yeah.
the Karamu House, at places that we can place people at so they can benefit in the arts also, through the chair to the director.
Through the chair, yes, we, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that we'd like to better assist the hospitality community, so across music and culture, but also restaurants, sort of a lot of the things that make Cleveland so lovable to us are, those employers are struggling, and we want to make sure that we're being a good matching organization between qualified workers or musicians or artists and those hiring employers. So that is a intended area of focus for us.
Yeah, we could take a look at some cities like Austin, Texas, Detroit,
Yeah.
whatever, because they have the arts intertwined in their workforce development.
Yeah.
And then we can put people to work that way also. You got to believe in the power of work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. There was one other amendment that I need to add to this, and it is in Section 3. It's number 3. In Section 1 at the end, add the following: that the leadership of the Workforce Development Board shall provide all members of the Workforce Education, Training, and Youth Development Committee with quarterly reports on activities of the Workforce Development Board in coordination with updates on the Built Environment Workforce Development Initiative. And this amendment was put in place by Vishnu Gagliani. So all 3 of those amendments. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number, did you have me that? Ordinance number 1030-23 as amended stands approved. Thank you, Ms. Rose.
Thank you. Thanks. See you, Sam. Thanks, everyone.
All right, the Famicos group, if they can come up, the group working with the Lakeview area. This is ordinance number 1134-2023 by Council Members Harrison and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Development to consent to the assumption of contract number 57146 by Famicos Foundation for the construction of Lakeview Place development located in the Forest Hills neighborhood, and authorizing the director to enter into an amendment to that contract to change certain items. Director and, or Assistant Director and Mr. Analifo.
Thank you, Council President and members of the committee. Before you have a request to authorize Department of Community Development to be able to amend existing contracts, a contract that was actually between the City of Cleveland and Huff Development Corporation for a development called Lakeview Place. It was a lease purchase project with townhomes and single-family scattered site development. In order to be able to execute that amendment for the project that Famicos had taken over at the request of HUD, we need the council to formally recognize that they assumed that project and be authorized to make amendments to the agreement that was originally between Huff Development Corporation and City of Cleveland. And with that, I'll have Mr. Analifo answer any questions the council may have regarding this request.
Mr. Analifo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This particular project was put in service in 2000, and Famicos acquired the general partnership interest in 2013. It was originally sponsored by NNDC, that's Northeastern Neighborhood Development Corporation, that has been defunct, and later transferred to Glenview Development Corporation, also defunct, and in 2013 we acquired it at the behest of the then Director of Community Development Department, Del Rush. And we have been managing it ever since. There are some problems or inconsistencies in the contract. It's not specific as to the $216,000 that the city had loaned to the project, Northeastern Neighborhood Development Corporation, which we acquired. And what we're asking the council and the city is to acknowledge those inconsistencies and to make amendment to become specific, so that there are 9 single families scattered site that are part of the 25 unit development. The other 16 are townhomes. So we want the way it is written is that the loan is directed to the townhomes. It did not make any specific anything specific about the single families. However, in the same contract, it talks about selling the 9 single-family units after compliance, which is at the 16th year. But because it was not specific, we're trying to get the city to acknowledge that fact and to do the amendment so that we can sell those 9 units to the people that live with them. The remaining townhomes will remain rental until 2030, when it becomes compliant, and then the loans and the interest will be forgiven at that point in time.
And thank you so much. Whose ward is this in? Is this in Councilwoman House's?
No, that is
Councilman Hairston?
that is no Conwell.
Councilman Conwell?
No,
Hairston.
yeah, Hairston.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, so let me go to the CD, to the DPS chair, and also the council person on record for the ward over there. Councilman Hairston?
Thank you, Mr. President. Fully support. I understand the urgency in this matter, so we relieved it from committee, so that way they continue to flow through the process. Obviously, you see as support from community development. This dates back 20 years ago, right, where the neighborhood has gone through several hands in terms of community development work. Ultimately landed, as everything always do, back in the lap of Famicos to fix and get straight. And so fully supportive of this, Mr. Chair, and asking the committee to support this. You know, we've seen this in other communities like yours, where you had these lease purchase homes to see in the people get caught in the middle are the folks who's done what they were supposed to do and are
Yeah.
in these homes, and then they can't realize what was promised to them. So unfortunately, you know, this is a similar situation as both directors have narrated, has occurred, you know, with this piece here.
Thank you, Councilman. And Director Wacker, Assistant Director Wackers, at some point in time, I would really like to get a breakdown of who all has been impacted by that. Because I know there's still a case that I know pending in Tremont because their situation put them in the crosshairs because their home appraised at such a high rate, they couldn't get the deal that the folks got in the Buckeye neighborhood. And I think they're trying to figure out how, I'm not sure they can figure out, to be honest with you, because the gap is too big. It's a lot of folks that got caught up in that crossfire, and John is laughing because we go back that long that we know a lot of the folks that were in those lease purchases, and I would really love to get an understanding of the impact of how many people have actually succeeded and actually got in their homes after that 15-year period and who it fell off. Because I'm willing to bet, I'm riding through some of these neighborhoods that were built in City Rama in the 2000s that are already boarded up and abandoned and starting to get scrapped. Right. I really hope that we are monitoring that because I would love to understand how that, how we've been impacted by that. So do you guys keep numbers on that?
To the President, yes, we do keep numbers. We do know that the number of lease purchase properties, various whatever stage they are in, is in the thousands, well over 1,000. Many of which the City of Cleveland has some interest because of our financial commitment and partnership. I'm happy to provide the high-level numbers as well as some of the challenges that we are experiencing across the lease purchase environment.
If you could, at some point in time, could you make sure that the chairman has that, and then I would love to see those numbers as well. And if Joe, if you can have that follow up, because I really would love to see how we address that, because housing has been a priority for this council. Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 1134-2023? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1134-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you, Mr. Annalifo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, councilors.
I think that's all the guests. Next, I'll go to ordinance number 1122-2023 by council members McCormick and Hairston, an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 by amending section 329.01 as amended by ordinance number 2145-82 passed November 5, 1984, related to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I believe this is a council piece. Councilman McCormick and Hairston, do you guys want to give some comments to that? And Director Wayne. And this was relieved by DPS, by the chair of DPS, so he can make his amendment, okay? Please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just kick us off, and then if my colleague has any other comments. Chair, this, Councilman Hairston and I are sponsoring this piece, and I'll ask the director to weigh in as well. But essentially, right now, we've had a lot of conversations with the City Planning Department, the Law Department, and others. Our ordinances prohibit the Board of Zoning Appeals from meeting at any other time outside of their time that's designated. And while there's nothing prescribed yet as to whether they would meet at another point or what that would look like, what we're saying here is we are giving them the ability to hold additional meetings if and when needed, and it would be at the discretion of the board itself. So what this is doing is it's relieving the prohibition on the board, which I believe this is the only board that for some reason we prohibit from meeting, for example, on a special meeting. If there's a week they need an additional meeting, they're not allowed to do that by law. Council set that a long time ago. We don't know why. But this ordinance opens up the ability for them to do that. And Councilman Hairston, through the chair, if you have any other opening remarks.
Councilman Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Vice Chair McCormick. He summed it up pretty well that, you know, this allows for the flexibility for the board if they are inclined to need to move and handle board business on, in addition to the one day that they are prescribed to meet. You know, this is also one of the only boards that does not have alternates as well. And, you know, sometimes quorum can be a challenge as well if you are trying to hear things that you probably can't put off. You can't have an alternate to come in. Every other commission or board has an alternate that's allowed except for BZA. And so this is the first of a few pieces that we will be hearing in our work with the planning department to be able to assist the BZA, who we all know does a tremendous amount of good work every single week. You know, very professional people who put in a lot of time to hear a lot of these issues across the city of Cleveland. And so this will be the first step in aiding that commission to achieve a lot of the goals that we'd like to see happen across the city. Director?
All right. Director?
That's correct. I believe the council members have covered that pretty holistically. Again, this would allow BZA to meet beyond the 9:30 a.m. meeting, and that is specifically named in the ordinance as Mondays at 9:30 a.m. unless there is a Monday holiday. And so, knowing that we receive all kinds of appeals, we see about 300 cases a year. If that increases, we believe the Board of Zoning Appeals will be burdened with, you know, likely all-day meetings even, and so this allows for that possibility to happen, as stated by the council.
You know, no good deed goes unpunished, right? Because you know there's going to be somebody that's going to say, why don't you have meetings in the evening so more people can attend and those kind of things. So I'm glad that you opened it up, but I hope your board is ready for that request. Because I can hear the request coming into you now about 9:30 is hard for people to get off of work and get there, and now they're going to try to come there. So I think it's a good thing, but just want to make sure you recognize
We'll
that's
be
gonna
prepared.
Interesting. Okay? All right.
Maybe use some help from the other side of the table.
I could always
so.
say you asked for it. Okay? All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1122-2023 stands approved. Thank you so much, Director. Next, we have ordinance number 1155-2023 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Human Resources to enter into one or more contracts with Pluto Acquisition Open LLC, DBA, Open Online for professional services necessary to provide pre-employment background and criminal checks for the Department of Human Resources for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Human Resources. Director, and this is for $75,000.
That's correct, annually. Council President and Committee, yes, this is a ordinance to approve a direct award master agreement under the Ohio Cooperative Contract for a period of 1 year with 2 one-year renewals. Our proposal came in on July 11th during the City Council recess. The effective date would be November the 1st, 2023 through October 31 of 24. And the direct award is permissible pursuant to Ordinance 247-2019. It covers basically all of our background checks for pre-employment. So it's anything from criminal to driving to social security number, skip traces to pretty much anything you can think of.
Thank you, Director. So does this cover the enterprise funds as well? Water, CPP, et cetera?
This is for all employees, correct?
All employees
Both
in the city,
funds, yes.
Okay. What questions do we have on a contract for the HR department on background checks for pre-employment? Councilman, do you have a question?
Yeah.
Councilman Conwell.
To the chair, when we're supposed to look at background checks, you do more than just look at criminal records. You look at barriers to employment and et cetera, to the chair. Is that correct?
Yes.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. We look at anything from criminal to driving to educational to employment, certifications, licensures, pretty much anything you can think of for any given position.
So, one last question.
Yeah.
How long does it take them to turn around and give us information so that we can place someone into a job spot through the chair?
Director?
Through the chair, Councilman, it depends. It's usually pretty quick. You could be talking anything from a day or two to probably a couple weeks, depending upon if they have to actually do a county record check, for instance, or a city record check, where they actually have to physically send somebody to obtain records. Normally, though, it's quick. It's just a number of days.
So do they give you, like, you do this contract, do they quantify saying that we only can do 75 people or 50 or let's say 100 people? Is there a cutoff through the chair?
Through the chair to Councilman, it basically is package deals for different services, or they're a la carte. So it kind of depends on what the position is and what we're asking for. So we can select basically any one of a number of services. So they actually provide the rates to us, which are very competitive rates, and then we pick from those on the background we want to perform for that candidate. So it depends.
So let me ask you another question. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, it's your floor.
So, you do a background check on someone, and you mentioned that. Do they do MVRs as well, motor vehicle reports through the chair?
Through the chair, that's correct, Councilman.
Okay, and how often do you do, so for example, a lot of people drive vehicles and drive certain widgets in the city of Cleveland. And some of them, like for example, MVR might come back, motor vehicle report might come back clean. But let's say next month, it may not. So how do we look at that, or do they go back and do another check on the MVR through the chair to the personnel director?
Through the chair, Councilman, that's actually a great question. I can think of probably several classifications where a driver's license is necessary. Unfortunately, I don't know the answer to your question. I know that I have not been involved as of yet with like a periodic review, driver's license, like abstract or review. That's something I could find out, though, certainly.
You know what, since we are self-insured, this piece here is very, very important that we're going to pass. And they're doing background checks, and especially on MVRs, motor vehicle reports. And so if someone don't have their insurance or their MVR, let's say 6 points, whatever the case may be, and we're self-insured, it hurts us in the long run. So we got to have some kind of systems to monitor and control the MVR, because majority of the workers here, guess what? They drive. Police officers drive, firefighters drive, EMS people drive, building and housing people drive, the health department drive, all that kind of stuff with MVRs. They drive. And it's an ongoing piece. Well, how do you monitor and control these MVRs? Because if they get into an accident on a city time, you want to be able to pull them off, because it's also correlated with workers' compensation as well. If they get in an accident while they're driving a vehicle, they'll file for workers' compensation. The other people will file for a lawsuit, So that thing, you got to ask them that question. How do we monitor and control that for our workers? To the chair, to Human Resource Director.
Through the chair to Councilman, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't know what the process is for those periodic reviews, but I would agree that they're necessary because we do have so many positions that do require a good driving record. And certainly if someone's involved in something that would remove their ability to drive especially, that would be very important to know, because they would no longer be technically qualified depending upon their position. So that certainly is something I would be interested in learning myself. That unfortunately I don't know though currently yet.
Yeah, because you know what? And with this here that you're introducing to us is really is prevention. So if we know where the worker is at with their driving record, or we know where the worker is at with a criminal record, whatever the case may be, then we can do prevention and we can move them to another job spot or something like that. Through the chair to the director.
Through the chair to Councilman, correct. And this really initially is to cover the pre-employment backgrounds to determine if they're qualified based upon what comes back. So for instance, if the record is poor, driving record is poor, that could technically be grounds to not hire them. If we've made a conditional offer. So you're right, prevention and pre-check. And then on the ongoing basis, that's a very, very good point that you bring up.
I think I look at the monitor and control of it, though, and see, maybe Ed Romero, because he deals with risk management, and it's kind of shifting over to risk. You think, through the chair to the director?
Through the chair to Councilman, I would agree it is a risk matter, safety matter. I would have to check with each of the departments on how they handle that currently, but I do agree that Mr. Romero might be a good place to start as well.
Yeah, you might know. But thank you very much. That was just intriguing. I want to figure out, I'll try to think about prevention. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, and to my honorable colleagues, to the director. So you, just follow up, you do background checks on all city employees?
Through the chair to Councilman, correct. We do background checks on all.
Would that be directors as well?
That's correct.
Okay. So, and obviously that wouldn't include city council because our citizens do those background checks, okay, as we've learned over the years, okay? So, yeah, and our opposition do the background checks. So there's a lot of background checks taking place there, I can assure you. But specifically with regard to police. So applicants to police. So you do an extensive background check into them, correct?
Through the chair to Councilman, correct. We would do an extensive background check.
So it's more than a regular city employee, what a regular city employee would be looked at?
Through the chair to Councilman, I don't know every component that they check for Department of Public Safety, but I would have to imagine based on the position that there's a very thorough check done.
Okay, but the question is, who's doing it? Is it you or safety?
Through the chair to Councilman, we do the background check, but I do believe public safety has a mechanism that they utilize as well.
So then I would request, Mr. Chairman, to the director, if you could provide to us, as it pertains to a potential recruit into the Division of Police, what are you looking at? Because I'm trying to understand, based on the number of people that are applying for the Division of Police, why we wind up with so few. At the end of the day, we have 299 applying, and we wind up with 10 or 11. I'm trying to understand what's taking place during that process that washes out so many people. Because I've been talking to other suburban communities. Like I just spoke last week to the Euclid Chief of Police, who filled every position that was open. And I'm trying to understand what are we doing? Are we doing something differently here than they're doing? Because we need. It's become very clear. I've been crunching numbers over the weekend, looking at where we're at right now, and in Division of Police, we're at about 1920 levels now. 1920. in the division of police. And we got to figure out how to put more people out on the street so we can provide incentives, which are great and I totally support, for people to want to be police officers. But if they're not being hired, it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't do our citizens any good. And that's what I'm trying to understand. What is in this process? And you indicated the process is relatively quick, your background checks.
Through the chair to the councilman, correct. I do think, though, that your question might be expanding out more to the selection, the total process,
Yes.
not just
Well, no,
the process
exactly.
of the background.
I'm trying,
correct.
all of us, I think, are trying to understand the process. How do you wind up with this number of people applying and then so few at the end of the line? Why are people being washed out, and for what reasons are they being washed out?
Through the chair to the councilman, I do know that there are several steps from the application, including test, physical.
Yes. No, I understand that.
Drug tests,
Yeah.
background checks. I don't know the full selection process, and I apologize for not knowing that, but I do know that there are several steps.
Okay. No, I understand. If someone just got out of the can for doing 15 to 20 for manslaughter, well, that person should be washed. We're not going to hire that person. But I'm trying to better, and all of us are grappling with this. Why are so many people being washed out of the list, and then ultimately wind up with so few that are being hired? So I'll leave it at that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. The only other question I would ask you is, we still have ban the box in place, right?
To the chairman,
So the application that we have is not supposed to ask, have you ever been committed of a felony? Until after the background check, so that we don't indiscriminately, bar a lot of people from employment based on if they check that felony box.
Through the chair, to the chair, that's correct.
Okay, all right, just wanted to make sure, because that's very important for us to try to make sure that we keep our worker pool.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1155-2023 stands approved.
Thank you.
All right, next up is ordinance number 1025 these are from this morning. So the first one is ordinance number 1025-2023 by council members Bishop and Griffin, by departmental request determining a method of making the public improvement of repairing, constructing, or installing various roadway and bridge improvements, including but not limited to asphalts, resurfacing, concrete repairs, bus pads, sidewalks, driveways, curbs, brick streets, ADA compliant curb ramps, minor bridge repairs and crack sealing, authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to enter into one or more improvement requirement contracts for the making of the improvement, authorizing the Director to apply for and accept any gifts or grants, and authorizing any agreements for a period not to exceed 2 years. Director.
Good afternoon, Council President. So this is our legislation for the 2024 and 2025 road and bridge requirements contracts. Typically, we enter into multiple contracts for different types of work. In the past, currently, we have one for asphalt, one for concrete, one for the 50/50 program. We have two for the TDS program, and we have one for bridges. We do anticipate tweaking those contracts a bit. The two for TDS didn't quite work out to give us the capacity that we needed, so we are going to work on some changes to that. But this ordinance allows us to go out to bid and put the scope out to bid for these types of contracts. You went through the type of work, asphalt resurfacing, concrete repairs, bus pads, sidewalks, pretty much anything that we would need to do that's not a separate project that gets bid out So major projects that have other funding coming in from the state or the county gets bid out. If it's Councilmatic funds, if it's ARPA funds, if it's our road and bridge funds, then this is the mechanism that we do to do that work. It's much more nimble than bidding it out, and we have agreed upon prices from the contractors. We issue task orders, and then they move forward with that work. So happy to take any questions. Rick Switowski's here as well, and we're looking to move forward with bidding these projects so that we can get underway in 2024.
Okay, a couple of things before. You want to add anything, Rick? No, okay, a couple of things, just want to understand. I asked a couple of the other departments. We used to get a form on the bottom that actually showed MBE and DBE numbers that we don't get as much anymore. So I know this is just just to give you the opportunity to go out and bid.
Mm-hmm.
But when we do accept whatever you bring back to us, can you guys make sure that you have the MBE and DBE numbers so that we know what the participation numbers are on those?
Yes, just for clarification, so is there something that we typically didn't put on this one, or you just
Not
don't
just
see
this
it
one,
at
I'm just
all?
saying in the future when you guys come back to us, because when you come for the award, you come back, we just want to make sure we understand the participation, MBE, DBE, and CSB.
Okay.
It used to be like a little section that just had what the percentages was or what the company's percentages was so that we could actually know that the companies do have diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay.
All right?
Understood.
Also, are we doing crack sealing still?
Yes.
So I'm glad to know that. It'd be interested. I really would love to understand, and I know that Councilman Bishop is going through his operational meetings, but I just don't see a lot of crack sealing. And I would love to understand how we're still trying to maintain some of those
As part of the
streets.
contract, part of the asphalt contract, we actually get money from the county also for materials. So we have money from the county to do
Talking to
roads.
your microphone, Rick, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that the public can hear.
Yeah, so we're doing crack sealing constantly. We can get you a list of what we've done this year.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I got a few requests, and I would love to see some more crack sealing because that's what I think helps preserve streets from having some of those potholes that just expand and expand. So I really would love to kind of understand your criteria, how you actually do that, and it'd be good to see that. Okay. All right. You want to explain crack sealing? I know what it is.
I'll have
but-
Rick explain it.
Rick, you want to explain it if you could?
Yeah,
real
through the
quick?
chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. What he said. Yeah. Yes. They just take. Go. tell
He'll
them
give
to-
you more technical.
Well, it's actually, to the council president, to the council member, it's a methodology that basically you see a tanker truck that has emulsified heated asphalt, and there's a gentleman behind it with a wand, and the wand's about that wide, and they look for cracks in the asphalt to seal it, so that when it gets cold weather, you don't get the water in there, you get the expansion and crack the asphalt. It's typically, you really want to use it within the first couple, 2-3 years, make sure you get the cracks done at that point in time. But even afterwards, up to 5 or 10 years, you can still go ahead and crack seal and save that road for a few more years.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. So through the chair, you guys are in charge of resurfacing the streets, right? Like assigning the contractor to resurface the streets, correct?
We are, but there are, most of the residential resurfacing program is through the Division of Streets as well. So these requirement contracts are for any work that we're not doing ourselves.
Got it. Okay, so if I have a complaint about every time that a street gets resurfaced in our area, there's a backup of water on that street, or like maybe the catch basins are covered with the concrete, would that go through the streets department or would that be capital projects?
You can always start with us, and then we'll look to see who did the recent resurfacing of the street, and if it's debris from the construction project, or if it was something that was existing before, we can always talk to WPC to take a look at the catch basin.
Got it.
But you can always start with us, and we'll figure out who did the last project on that
Okay.
street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Municipal Services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we fully support this. We vetted it this morning.
Thank you, sir. Additional questions on 1025-2023? Hearing none, 1025-2023 is approved. Please sign. Director, I've got 1090. 1090 is your next one? Great. Ordinance number 1090, 2023 by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to employ one or more professional consultants and testing firms to perform various construction activities and design projects facilities for a period up to 2 years. Director, 1090.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is authorizing us to go out to bid for our on-call engineering services. And so this is a 2-year contract that we fund 1 year at a time so that we allocate funds in each capital bond, road and bridge bond allocation. And so it would be a 2-year contract. We intend to fund it for $1 million for the first year. And typically we spend most of that money in each of those years. The type of work is transportation engineering for roads, bridges, retaining walls, and slope stability analysis, as well as material testing, environmental testing, geotechnical engineering, and environmental engineering, land acquisition. We have an appraisal contract usually as a sub. Structural engineering and bridge inspection. So basically technical work that supplements our staff's abilities, which we also issue on a task order basis. We have 2 firms with a heck of a lot of sub-consultants that are part of that team that we select 2 firms each year for this 2-year period.
Thank you, Director. And who currently has this contract?
We have 2 contracts. One is with GPD and one is with SME. And they each have, we have the list of sub-consultants.
Those are
here if you'd
engineering
like.
firms, is that correct?
Yes.
Great. Councilman Bishop, this was heard in Municipal Services and Properties.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we vetted this morning, fully support.
Is that both of them? Okay, cool. All right. Any other questions? All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1090-2023 stands approved.
Thank you.
Please sign on. All right, here you go. All right. All right. Next one is that all of them? I thought we had a couple more for Public Works. And one other one.
Yeah, I'll take the Public Works one.
Did we pass the Woodhill one already?
Well, it has to go to DPS.
DPS, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, okay. All right, yes.
Through the chairman of the councilman, I don't know if she's downstairs or not. I've been up here for a while.
Okay, all right. This next one is ordinance number 1083-2023 by council members Mora, Bishop, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the Calgary Park Renovation Project Program. Director. And I believe this was heard in Municipal Services, but Director, if you can go over this.
Mr. Chairman, yes, it was heard this morning, and I think you've all heard me at the table say that we go after all the funds we can to supplement city funding for projects, and this is one example where MOCAP has been working with Public Works on a grant from Land and Water Conservation Fund, so this would allow us to apply and expend a grant for renovations at Calgary Park. As you know, we have 2 parks that are funded for complete renovations, and one of the requirements of this grant is that we have all the funds for the renovation, and then they would reimburse a portion of it.
Okay.
If we received all the funds that we're seeking, it would be $500,000 that would be eligible for reimbursement, and this is again through the National Park Services Land and Water Conservation Fund. Should we add anything else? Should we answer? We're ready to answer questions.
Thank you. And so the project budget is $500,000, is that correct?
Go ahead.
To the chairman, the project budget is, we're doing cost estimates now. It should be around $1 million. So we have the one-for-one matching of $500,000 for the grant.
So city contribution is 500 and the federal is 500, is that correct?
If we-
No, state.
Federal, but if
Federal.
we get it, yes, it would be, if we get what we're applying for, it'd be $500,000, yes.
Okay.
50% match.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop, this went through your committee, Municipal Services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we fully vetted this and we approved it for passage.
Alrighty. Do I have any questions about the city applying for a grant from the Department of Natural Resources for the Calgary Park renovation? Hearing none, ordinance number 1083, 2023 is approved. Please sign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Councilman Hairston, 1025 is going through you, is that correct? Yes. All right, so we're going to hold that piece. All right, I've got a piece on vacation leave. Director, come on up. This is ordinance number 1092, 2023 is amended by Mayor Bibb to amend sections 17128 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as enacted by ordinance number 30685, passed April 29th, 1985, relating to vacation leave. Director.
Hello again, and thank you.
Proceed.
Oh, okay. Yes, we have several changes that are being proposed, and with your permission, I was going to go through each subsection, if you prefer that way.
Yeah, this is the first committee it's being heard at, so
Okay.
please proceed with your presentation.
Great. So for section 171.28.
And maybe you just give us an overview of what it is before you dive into each piece.
Sure. So this is being brought forth to update and really make the vacation policy more to industry standard, particularly in the public sector. And so we're looking at making some much needed changes. I am comfortable in saying also that this will be the first of many policy ordinances I bring forward, amendments to the ordinance. So that's the basis of the changes.
Alrighty, proceed, please.
What would be new subsection A? Let me back up. So we are going to strike subsection A and amend what was formerly subsection B to provide employees with 2 weeks of vacation following 30 days of employment. Currently, the ordinance of the policy call for vacation to be granted on January 1st of each year based upon their accrual. So anybody who starts during the course of a year is not granted vacation until the subsequent January 1st, or may not be. This would change so that they get 2 weeks of vacation following 30 days of continuous employment. So that's the first piece there. Subsequently, under new subsection A, what I'm going to call Tier 2, which is currently, whereas an employee will get 3 weeks following 8 years of service, will actually get 3 weeks at 5 years of service. That is also industry standard, particularly in the public sector, is 5 years for Tier 2. For new subsection B, what this does is address the rate in which how an employee accrues and determines how much vacation time the employee has when they separate. So basically, it's a calculation. If they separate, for instance, in the middle of a year, say June 30th, when we go to calculate it, for instance, if they're on Tier 1 or 2 week accrual rate, they would earn 5 days, so that's part of their payout at separation. So that's new subsection B. Subsection C, this is where it provides the mayor and the clerk of council the ability to provide additional weeks of leave to unclassified employees at your discretion, at their discretion, excuse me. This is really being added primarily for recruiting purposes. We are competing in an ever more competitive labor market. The private sector simply is not going to, a private sector employee considering employment with the city of Cleveland simply isn't going to generally accept a 2 week vacation balance unless they're really new, to the work life. So this gives the ability to add some additional vacation time as a means to essentially bargain. And that is at the discretion of either the mayor or clerk of council, but it is only for unclassified employees. Subsection D, new subsection D, is striking shall have earned. And this is simply just a point of clarity. Earned is inferred, so it's basically just stating that credit is needed, earned is not. Excuse me, subsection E. Basically what this addresses is vacation leave is paid out at their current rate of pay. Under the current ordinance, it states the rate of pay at each month of year of separation, and that's pretty arduous. I think the goal there is just to pay them what they're due at the point in which they're actually separated in employment. So it's that rate of pay, not going back through the year of separation.
Hold on, I got to read the amendment.
Sure.
Go ahead. All right, go ahead. I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Should I continue?
Continue, please continue.
Okay. Subsection F is adding an N to the A prior to unpaid. And actually, it's going to add some clarity by also adding under subsection B of this section. So it's just referring back and removing instead of, and creating an. Subsection G is just the old F, there's no change. Subsection H is adding the words replace, amend, or. That's just to offer clarity, not just say deprive them of the rights, but actually that we're not going to replace or amend the rights under the collective bargaining agreement. And collective bargaining agreement is being added in place of MOU because it's really the CBA that rules. MOUs are additions to the collective bargaining agreement. Subsection I, this is what provides me or the HR director in the position to carry out the new subsection C. So it just refers back to the subsection C. And then finally, section 2 is new. It's being added to provide retroactivity to 1/1/23 for the new subsection A. However, the tier 2 adjustment going from 8 years to 5 years is not effective till 1/1/24. So that'll be next year. And then finally, if I haven't spoken enough already, subsection C will also be retroactive to 1/1/23. And that is the summary of the changes to the amendment or the ordinance.
All right, thank you. And I believe I still need to read the amendment, so I will read the amendment that there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In section 1, add amended section 171.28B at the end of the division after 10%, strike the period and insert or such other formula based on the city's current payroll system as approved by the Board of Control. In section 171.28F, line 4, after employee during strike, A, and insert and strike section 171.28I in its entirety and insert I, the Director of Human Resource, subject to approval of the Board of Controls, shall promulgate procedures and regulations to carry out this section 171.28 of the Codified Ordinances, and this is dated 10/10/23, signed by Stephanie Melnick, Chief Director of Law. All right. Okay, so I guess the only thing I say is my colleagues have made me a convert. this is where I'm a little bit old school, Mike Polensek, because I have never heard of
I agree.
you get 2 weeks up front of vacation, but I'm understanding that that is industry standard, and if you want to get any young person, millennial, or anybody, that you better have that policy in place. So I've been, informed that we need to pass this with flying colors, and I'll say no more, but I'll turn it over to my colleague, Councilman Kerry.
I have a
McCourt.
question, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I got you down.
Mr. Chairman, a personal point of privilege, a reporter recently asked me, I sat down to talk about the council president, and I said, they're doing a profile on him, and I said, truly, I said, one of his best characteristics is that he listens. He doesn't just hear you, he listens, and that is something. Not every leader a lot of leaders don't have that attribute, so I want to just shout that out, because the man does listen, and when he's listening to you, he's actually listening to you. So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to speak in support of Ordinance 1092-2023. I'm in agreement with the director. I can't imagine in today's environment someone applying for a job at the city of Cleveland with 0 vacation time. Who would take that job? Who would take that job? Because every other company is offering vacation time.
Yes.
So, Chair, I fully support these changes. I think they make all the sense in the world. And again, it's blew my mind learning about, because council people, we have no vacation. We don't get any vacation allocated, so we're a little different. But
I forgot that we got summers off.
You're wrong. Anybody,
I'd be willing
listen,
to trade.
if anybody wants to trade the summer I just had, with me,
Exactly.
give me 2 weeks and I'll give you my summer. Have at it, because it wasn't fun. Anyways, this is a doozy of the summer. Anyways, so Chair, I just want to speak in support of 1092. This is updating our policies to come in line with everybody else in the world. And I think it's going to be a really important tool. We talk a lot about our vacancies at the City of Cleveland. We hear a lot about police, but it's not limited to police. It is in every department we have vacancies. And, in order for us to best serve our residents, which is why we're all here, we have to attract talent to do that, whether it is crack sealing, patrolling our streets, or the, chief of staff of the city. Everybody included, we got to hire good talent. And I think that this is a minimum in order for us to get in line with industry standards. And once again, we have incredible public servants here that love their city and are here because they love their city. But at the end of the day, reasonable people would look at our current policy and choose elsewhere because of it. So I think this is a critical step in order to get us in line with the industry and to recruit talent, which at the end of the day, all of our jobs here are to provide services for our people.
Correct.
And if we don't have the right folks in place to do that, we can't provide services for our residents as an organization. So I fully support this, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. I have Councilman Conwell and Councilman Polensek.
How much to the chair, to the personnel director, when, I'm old school. You work, you put your vacation time in the bank, and you control vacation, because that's controlling the cost of labor. And you know that, to the chair. So what is the total cost for this right here? This moving the system, you give people vacation time right up, and is it after the 90 days? You got a period of 90 days, or is it in the outstart?
Through the chair to councilman, it's after 30 days. They're provided 2 weeks of vacation. Related to your question on the cost, I do not have a total cost. We haven't gotten that far. However, we thought the best approach was to get going on the change and making sure that we can use this as a tool to recruit. In my short time here, which is, I think, about 6 weeks now, I've actually had people decline positions because we cannot compete.
With the vacation time.
That being one of others in some cases, but yes, vacation time is big, especially coming from the private sector.
Yeah, I see that through the chair. Okay, like, you recruit people, that costs money to recruit people. To interview people, it costs dollars also. All right? because you have people making money interviewing people. Vacation dollars cost money also. Although they don't, when the mayor gives us his transmittal, I don't think they put vacation down. It's a cost, but I don't see it. He talks about sick time and I don't see it there, but you got to know how much it's going to cost us also, because it's going to affect the budget. Can you give that to us? Because it costs dollars. Vacation times cost money.
Through the chair to Councilman, yes, I will work with finance to get some type of an estimate for you.
Got to make an estimate, because where we at? This is past third quarter. You got to know where you're going to when you come back to council with that. And that's why the safety chair, asks about, even with police officers with vacation time, with the health people with vacation time, all that. I mean, that's money. It might even go in the recruitment package, put it on the side for a fund for that. I need this as well. I'm going to sign off for it. Some people, here's a strong assumption, use vacation time. They'll use sick time for vacation time. So you're going to have to control sick time also. They're correlated to the chair, to the human resource director.
Through the chair to the councilman, I would hope that if there's any suspected sick leave abuse, because that's what it would be, that it's being addressed. I don't disagree with you that sometimes people do that. The hope certainly is, though, that that is being watched closely and addressed if it's being abused, so that they don't just stockpile vacation time for other reasons. Yeah.
You could bank vacation time and you use sick time. You take off on Friday or Monday, 3-day work week, through the month. I mean, you got to watch trends. And when you watch that, they're correlated with the vacation and the sick time because it's part of the cost of labor. You got to watch both of them. I'm going to sign off on it, but some kind of systems in place to track it.
Through the chair to Councilman Conwell, yes, that would be clear pattern absenteeism, abuse, and I know that in my former positions, that's always been something I've kept a close eye on because it does occur in certain places and should be addressed. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm finished. I'm done. I mean, that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Mike Palencia.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to the director. I'm trying to get a better understanding of this and to follow up on some of the line of questioning by Councilman Conwell. Obviously, I'm looking at the financial implications as well, because right now this body and our citizens are faced with issue 38 on a ballot, a group who wants to take $14 million out of the general fund of direct city services. And then obviously we have the new police contract that's going to be coming to us shortly, or provisions which could be, I'm hearing, between 16 and 18 million as well. I don't have the exact figure, but that's what I've heard is estimated at. So I'm trying to look at the financial implications as well as to all the actions that we take and that we have been taking, its impact going into next year's budget, general fund budget. So I'm greatly concerned. So my first question, is there a reason why this didn't go to committee? Is there?
Most of this does come through this committee.
Okay.
This is the committee.
I thought it would have gone through the, okay.
Yeah, a lot of this comes through this committee because
Okay.
it's finance, human resource, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get some better understanding. So right now, after 30 days of employment, we're looking at a year, 365 days. After 30 days of employment, you would get 2 weeks.
Through the chair to Councilman Palencia, that's correct.
You would get the 2 weeks within the year, within that first year of employment.
That's correct.
Okay. So then looking at the big picture, what is the maximum amount of vacation that an employee can accrue?
Through the chair to Councilman Polensek, I don't.
So after 40 years of service, how many vacation weeks would you get?
So I do know that the greatest accrual can be 5 weeks.
5 weeks
per year.
And after 40 years, you most probably need a psychiatric examination as well with that, okay, with the 5 weeks. But the fact of the matter is, right, no comment as well. So what can you bank? Do you know, what can an employee bank in vacation days or vacation time? Let's say they don't, do they have to take vacation?
Through the chair to Councilman Polensek, I don't know all the provisions of maximums or usage requirements. I would imagine that most, if not all, the collective bargaining agreements have provisions in them related to those areas.
So my question is, can you bank vacation days? If you didn't take it, can you bank that?
Yes.
Okay, you can.
Yes, you can.
Okay, so when you leave, do you get all that, or you get a percentage?
Through the chair to Councilman, whatever you have in your bank is subject to payout.
100%?
That's correct.
And what about sick time?
The sick leave provision, I don't remember if it is at full or if it's a percentage. I haven't looked at it that
Okay, I'm going to
closely.
ask that through the chair, if you can get that to it. And besides vacation and sick time, is there any other days that an employee could receive?
Through the chair to the councilman, I believe I've seen instances where comp time is paid out.
Okay.
That would be the only other leave that I'm aware of.
Okay, if you could, through the chair, if you could provide that to us so we can understand what is out there, what is a everyday employee. As has been said, council members don't receive vacation. And so, you know, and I understand that why. We are elected officials. I understand that. But I'd like to get the big picture of what our employees are entitled to, what they can bank, and when they leave, what they can take with them. Is it 100% or is it a percentage or what? So I'd like to understand that. And the last question is, does any of this have to go before the collective bargaining unit? See, that's in the past, a lot of this had to be negotiated.
Through the chair to the councilman, so this does not affect those that fall under a collective bargaining agreement. The collective bargaining agreement provisions rule for those employees.
Okay, so that's an important point.
That's correct. We also did in one of the subsections also try to make that even more clear by actually striking in the ordinance MOU and replacing with a collective bargaining agreement to make it very clear that this
that's
does
what
not
I mean.
affect. Correct.
So if you within your collective bargaining agreement, if there are specifications with regard to vacation, this would have no impact on that.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I need to understand because, you know, we have. This is coming before us, but then we have, 33? How many collective bargaining units do we have?
Through the chair to the councilman, I believe it's 31.
31, okay.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to understand that mechanism and how this will affect the collective bargaining agreements and vice versa. So, Mr. Chairman, if we can receive that information that I requested, I'd be very helpful to get a better understanding. Again, based on my colleagues' comments, I think obviously we live in a different world today. We have to be more competitive. We have to be competitive by salary and hourly rate. We have to be competitive with vacation and sick time and all the other benefits that are being offered in the private sector if we are to achieve our goal of hiring people. Because when I looked, one of my colleagues just said to me last time that there are like over 2,000 vacancies in the city of Cleveland. I don't know if that number is correct for job openings. I mean, when I was told that figure, I said, whoa, wait, you got to be kidding me. 2,000 positions? I don't know if we're down 2,000 or there's actually that number of jobs that are open that are not filled.
Through the chair to the councilman, I do not have a number on vacancies. The most recent report I saw for filled positions was, I think, 7,083.
Okay.
I don't have a total number of vacancies, though. That number seems high to me.
Yeah,
but
I
I'm
thought
not
it was high too,
entirely sure.
but that's what I'm saying, maybe it's based on previous years or whatever, but that'd be something for us to know as well, how many actual vacant positions there are within the city of Cleveland that need to be filled, because if you, Mr. Chairman, as you've indicated, as the director's indicated, if some of these vacation days and some of these other things are impediments to us hiring quality employees, then it's something that we all have to look at, both the administration and the council. So on that note, I'm here to support it and hope that it will work to our advantage of being able to obtain more employment for our citizens and be more competitive. That's all I can say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Conway, you got a follow-up?
Yeah, just a follow-up point. What I would do, through the chair to the director, is try to push for more training of the workers for certifications and things like that. They might want that. And then when you have that, you can entice workers to come. And then, like, if you got job spots opening, and you train workers, if the unions let us do it, then you can cross-train your workers, or you could do job enlargements, and that would save us dollars in our budget in the long run. Through the chair to the director.
Through the chair to the councilman, I agree with you, and would want to make one other note that the expense for individuals leaving city employment as well, or us going through the processes to attempt to recruit and bring on is I think a very, very large amount. So when you're looking at the cost it may be for us to actually implement this, I think comparatively you would probably find that it's a very good decision to make these changes and become more competitive in the market.
I I see that, because recruitment costs money.
Yes.
Director, it costs money to recruit. And then your separation also, when people leave, it costs money also. Even if you hire people, and your job retention, that's what I'm looking at. And do you ever track that? You ever write it down for, like, if I recruit someone, how much does it cost? And if they leave, if they only stay for 6 weeks, whatever the case may be, because you trained them also, that training dollars will go in with your with having a worker there. You trained the person, that's money. Job retention, that's dollars. All of that stuff is in there, And you add it up, how much it cost.
Through the chair to councilman, I have not yet had the opportunity to run cost of hire or look at those metrics yet. I do think they're important metrics and plan on looking at those.
Yeah.
I just haven't had the opportunity yet.
I know you just got here. Matter of fact, when you came, I was one of the first ones to knock on your door.
you were. It was a
talking
nice
with
surprise.
you about it. I was just curious. That's all.
That's a very, very, very good point. And, I think the retention side of the conversation is important. It's not just the recruitment. We want people to come here, make a career, and stay. And that's really one of my main goals, is to try to help do that.
You better watch that culture, too, because the culture that you're trying to set, if you just bring bodies in that might not fit in with your culture, and it costs us money, because it's also behavioral science as well, correlated with the culture. Through the chair to the director.
Through the chair, you're correct. Culture fit is very important, particularly for long-term employment. And I know that with the interviews I've been involved in the processes the city of Cleveland uses, that is one of the components that's considered for hire.
That's important.
yeah.
You get the wrong person in the culture, it can destroy a whole department. And then we get it from the council members, let's say, for example, building the housing or parks. Get out of the right culture, then the residents, they're not executing on their job or their workload, then the residents are calling me or Kerry McCormack because there's an issue. So even though we're looking at, we're supporting a vacation, but I don't want to spend money on vacation and it destroys the culture or make the culture worse than what we are experiencing right now. That's why he was saying he had a bad summer. You bring the wrong people in, wrong culture, the summer and winter would be worse also. With that snow plowing, Councilmember Cormack, it's getting the right people for the right fit. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So seeing no other questions, ordinance number, if you could, Inez, could you add me to that ordinance number 1092, 2023? Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Last ordinance of the day is ordinance number 1006-2023, as amended by Council Members House and Gray, an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 by amending Section 162.01, as amended by ordinance number 466-2023, passed May 1, 2023, related to Cleveland Commission on Black Women and Girls. Ms. Curtis.
Thank you.
First of all, congratulations on your national award that you got. I don't know if everybody knows it, but congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't know about that, but thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. President, members of council, this ordinance is to amend Section 162.01 pertaining to the Cleveland Commission on Black Women and Girls, and it's being amended to add that the original appointment shall be for a staggered term, so that the memberships don't all, the members don't turn over all at one time. And so it's adding a staggered term, and it's being divided evenly by the appointments for the mayor and the council. So the staggered terms will be 3, 2, 1, and each, the mayor's office and the council will be able to appoint the members accordingly.
Okay, and I want to make sure that I read the legal objection of that. There is no legal objection to this. This is the amendment. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in Section 1, at amended Section 162.01A10, line 1, after Cleveland Metropolitan School District, insert CMSD, and in line 3, at the end between guardian and the period, insert who shall be appointed for a term of 1 year. Number 2, in Section 1, add amended Section 162.01C, line 1, after designee, strike, and in line 2, after council's designee, insert and the CMSD students. Strike lines 3, 4, and 5 in their entirety, and insert original appointments shall be as follows. The members under subdivisions A1, A3, A5, and A7 shall serve 3 years. The members under subdivisions A2, A4, A6, and A8 shall serve 2 years, and the members under subdivision A9 shall serve 1 year in the event. And this was dated 10/10/23, signed by Rhonda Curtis, Rhonda G. Curtis, Chief Corporate Counsel. All right. Anybody have any questions about this legislation? This is legislation that the Councilwoman House and Councilwoman Gray worked diligently with the law department to make sure that they made these amendments. So they've actually were the ones that pushed these on behalf of council. But does anybody have any other questions regarding this? This basically just deals with the structure and setup of the board.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1006-2023 stands approved as amended. And thank you so much, Ms. Curtis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Seeing that's the last piece of legislation, this Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is adjourned to the next call of the chair.